Well, welcome back. Last week, we discussed Deuteronomy 1 through 11, in which Moses told the Israelites to remember the past. And he gave a brief overview of where they had come from and how God had been providing for them during their 40 years in the wilderness. And he also reviews some of the laws, including the Ten Commandments. Chapter 11 concluded with promises of blessings if you love the Lord and obey him, and Shema him. Shema again means listen and obey, and warn of the consequences if they disobey. So this week, we're going into Deuteronomy 12:26. Remember the laws and why God gave them to the Israelites. It was because of his great love for them. He wanted them to know how to live with a holy God. He emphasizes they are to love God and others, including foreigners and even our enemies. And we're to do the same to them. The laws are God's gift to them to set them apart from pagan cultures. Once again, Deuteronomy means second law, but it is not a second law. It's actually a repeat of all the laws God had given them on Mount Sinai. Here are some fun facts about Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is quoted nearly 200 times in the New Testament. Who said there isn't goodness in the Old Testament? Nobody. We review it again and again in the New Testament. Almost 200 of the 613 Torah laws are in Deuteronomy. Torah, if you remember, is a Hebrew name for the first 5 books of the Bible. Also, they are called the Pentateuch. That's the Greek name, the first 5 books of the Bible. And some Bible scholars also call it books of the law, the first 5 books of the Bible. So there is a reference to the land, which we know is the promised land, 66 times as a gift God is giving to the Israelites.
Thank you.
The Israelites are told 69 times that they will possess or inherit the land. Included in this section is also a renewal of the covenant that was made on Mount Sinai with this new generation of Israelites. The Israelites will have specific obligations to meet according to the laws, and by their obedience, they will show their intent to follow God's will. After their commitment, Moses closes with this slide. Today, you have proclaimed the Lord to be your God, and that you will walk in his ways and keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and that you will obey his voice. Also today, the Lord has proclaimed you to be his special people, just as he promised you that you should keep all his commandments. He was reminding the seriousness of their commitment to God and what God is going to do for them. So the second address, as we said, is primarily focused on the law, and it's broken into 3 major categories: worship, leaders, and a community living. So let's begin with the laws governing worship. These are also called ceremonial laws, and they are how to worship a holy God. Well, it has to be an exclusive affair. Only one place in which they are able to worship the Lord, and it's chosen by God, not man. Later, God would choose the city of Jerusalem as a place for his temple. Today, our bodies are the temple of God because the Spirit of God dwells within us. Moses also warns them that there's 3 types of temptations they can expect when they enter the promised land that could draw them away from God. So he's warning them to avoid these temptations. And they are idolatry. That's worshiping other gods or other things. Affluence, because it's the land filled with milk and honey, and they haven't had homes to live in, and now they're going to have homes to live in. That could affect their relationship with God. And even hardships, because as we know, we're not promised that we're going to have a golden path if we believe in the Lord. They are therefore also to destroy all altars and high places and idols that they encounter when they take over the promised land. So they can remove that temptation at least. Also is repeated are the celebration of the 3 feasts in the spring, Pentecost, and the 3 false feasts. That's a tongue twister, fall feast. Now these feasts are spoken of in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and here again in Deuteronomy. And this won't be the last time we hear of these feasts. So that tells us these are very important to God. Anytime we see repetition in the Bible, we know that reflects something important. Then you're going to read about laws that govern leaders. God holds the leaders, which are the elders, the priests, the prophets, the kings, the judges, to a higher standard. And he was given God gave Moses the charge to have any kings that are chosen only by God and not man, to write out all the laws for their own personal copy that they could keep with them. So as they serve the people, they can actually follow God's law and know what it is by having them personal copy. And we'll see this later in the Old Testament, how this brings Israel back to a relationship with God. God would raise up prophets to speak for him when the leaders go astray, in hopes that the prophets' words will draw them back to their relationship with God of repentance. In fact, it says that God will raise up a prophet like Moses with a capital P prophet. So anytime we see a capital word in the Bible, what does that mean? Refers to Jesus. And that was in Deuteronomy 18:15. Also in this area about leaders is cities of refuge, which are going to be established for anyone who accidentally kills another. Today, Jesus Christ is our refuge. He is our safe place. We are under the shelter of his wing. And that's Psalm 17:8. Then we have the community living laws. These are the moral and social laws, the ones that tell us how to relate to one another and care for each other. There are moral laws about sexuality, marriage, and divorce, and how to function as a society that properly reflects God's heart to other nations. Included in this section is also rules about warfare, laws regarding wars against cities both inside the promised land and outside the promised land. Now, how can we read all these laws and make sense of them? Some may seem very far out and strange because our culture is so different today. But I suggest that you don't just glance over the laws. Rather, explore the answers to these questions. What does it teach about God? Remember, God is the same then as he is today and will be always. And then, how does it draw me closer to him? And finally, how can I apply the heart of this law today? In other words, translate it into an action that will reflect today's culture. In summary, in chapters 12 to 26, Moses clarifies and explains the God-given laws again to this second generation who was not alive or else was very young when their fathers and mothers agreed to it in Mount Sinai. Moses challenges them to be different from their parents, to love and obey God. Deuteronomy is the last book of the Torah, the Pentateuch, or the books of the law. What a pep talk, what hope, what encouragement Moses is giving. And then we get to chapters 27 to 34, Moses' final address. Remember, in which he says, remember, the choice is obedience or disobedience, life or death. And he exhorts them to choose life and to choose to Shema God, listen and obey. Thank you.